Hey guys, welcome back to RHR Jen. I'm so glad you're here. You guys, on Wednesday, I had such a great live chat and I had a special guest with me. And you know, the special guest, you guys have raved over the special guest, rightly so. And so do I. It's John Witherspoon, that attorney from DC. He's just so kind and answers all of our questions and does it in a way where we're not confused. He breaks it down to very manageable chunks. And I appreciate that so much about him. Well, he went to the courthouse. He was there for the visa hearing about Harry, and he gives us some pretty good information. And again, he explains it in a very understandable way and answers our questions. And it's a really interesting segment. So I'm excited for you to see this. I'm excited for you to see and hear the information he's bringing. And spoiler alert, there's another one coming up in a few weeks, and he does plan on being at that one as well. So I'm excited to have him back and tell us more. So again, a huge thank you to John. John, thank you for your time. Thank you for answering all of our questions and not making us feel dumb for asking the questions we ask and for explaining it to us in a very thoughtful way. We appreciate that so much. So guys, if you haven't already, check out John Witherspoon. He's on Instagram. The flock was very vocal about him starting a channel. So that's, I think, under consideration. And I'll be the first to let you know if he decides to start one up. But guys, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. Now let's get into the video. Oh, I feel the need to explain this. I've been changing my name a lot and I was like, what can I make it into? Since this one's about Harry and it will do RHR Jen. Really, Harry, really. I was trying to think, well, how can I turn that into Harry? I thought about doing something with Visa, but I think really Harry really works. Anyway, here we go. But I have a surprise guest and I'm so excited about it. Guys, ask and ye shall receive. You asked about Harry's court appearance today. Well, we have a surprise guest with us that's going to talk to us about Harry's court appearance today once I pop him up on screen. Hi, how are you, John?
Hey, Jen, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Hey, everybody say hi to John, who is, I'm pointing the wrong way, here from DC and was at the hearing today. Everybody's saying John in the comments. I don't know if you can see it. Everybody's very excited that you're here. That's right. Spicy pivot. Everybody's saying hi, John. How are you today? It's good to see you. Thanks for joining.
You're welcome. I'm a little bit cold. I'm just off the subway, but that's winter in DC for you.
I guess so. Oh, stay warm. I'm sorry to hear it. How has your day been?
It's been very interesting. I was down at court for a hearing about Harry's visa that started at 2:00.
Yeah.
And it was fun. It was very interesting. Had a good opportunity to speak with both Niall Gardner and also Samuel Dewey, who is the lawyer. Niall Gardner being with the Heritage Foundation, and Samuel Dewey is the attorney who is in charge of this case. And he had an opportunity to speak in court, and then they came down into the courthouse lobby afterwards and answered a lot of questions, and it was very interesting.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you for coming to talk to us about it. That's so exciting. You have quite the fan club, John. Might I just say, you've now had like 100 people saying, hi, John. Hi, John.
Excellent. That's great. I appreciate that. I'm not watching the chat because I find that when I try to do that, it goes by so fast that I can't keep up with it. So I'm seeing the supers though down in the corner. So Emma wants me to spill the tea. I'll do the best that I can with that.
Yes, I want to hear all about it. And do you mind? I don't know if you saw. Can I play a little bit of your video without the sound? Is that okay? What you walked up
Yeah.
and saw at the courthouse? Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah,
Just like to
absolutely.
make sure before I do anything like that. Hold on one second. All right, I'm
Yep.
going to do this. So, guys, John was kind enough to show us. This is the courthouse. John, I'll let you take it away. Show us what you show. Tell us what you're showing us.
Yeah, sure. This is what I saw right after I got out of the subway. This is the headquarters of the Washington, D.C. Police, the Metropolitan Police. We don't call them the Met here like they do in the UK, but it's still the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police, and that building right there is their headquarters.
That is
And
so
then,
cool.
yeah, and that's just a look down the street. And as we come up to this little walkway here, there is that building, I believe, is part of the Department of Labor. And then the building that is in the background there behind the blue statue is the courthouse, where the proceedings were held today. So this is just me walking along the sidewalk and trying not to trip. And
You do excellent walking. And guys, Squeegee just put in the chat. If you don't follow John on Instagram, he has a great Instagram. He's still in the process of setting that up, but it's awesome. Make sure you give him a follow there. So thank you, Squeegee, for that. But yeah, as this plays, John, do you mind telling us about it? So you were in court today, and
right.
tell us what happened. Tell us everything.
Sure. Well, just to give a little bit of background for people that have not been, closely following this,
Uh-huh.
basically what's going on here is that the Heritage Foundation, which is a think tank in Washington, D.C., has been very interested in how Harry managed to get himself into the United States, because he wrote extensively in his book and he has given a number of interviews um, about his drug use. And drug use normally makes you inadmissible in the United States. That's a Canadian embassy there in the background, the big
Cool.
square building in the center
Mhm.
for all the Canadians.
Canadian
Um,
geese. That's right. Canadian geese,
that's
eh?
right, the Canadian geese. And so normally somebody who had admitted to drug use, and there's some dirty Washington snow. If anybody was still hoping to make a snowball, we've got more on the way.
I
But
wanna make an angel in that. That's right.
yeah, I don't think you're going to want to do that. No.
Okay.
Um, so anyway, this is the back door of the courthouse where they bring prisoners in and out and so forth, and you can see it's got security there. So basically, what Heritage Foundation said was, we don't understand how he got into the country, because he either lied on his visa form about
Mhm.
his drug use, which he admitted to in the book in Spare and on TV, or he also could have told the truth on his visa application form, but was given some sort of special treatment by the Biden administration, which at the time he came in was controlling the Department of Homeland Security.
Mhm.
So, what Heritage Foundation wanted to do was to go to Homeland Security and file a Freedom of Information Act request, which they are entitled to do. Anybody's entitled to do that, and try and make sense of this. And this is the front door of the courthouse there that you can see.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for filming this for us.
Oh, sure, sure. And it continues a little bit. I go around the corner here and you'll get a view of the US Capitol and so forth.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they filed a Freedom of Information Act request, and the Homeland Security Department said that is not going to be fulfilled because we think it would be an invasion of Prince Harry's privacy. So Heritage Foundation did not agree with that, and they filed a lawsuit, which is being heard in this courthouse that we're looking at right now.
Mhm.
And there was a hearing about the case several months ago, and the judge ruled that there was not sufficient grounds and not sufficient in public interest to make the contents of Harry's visa file public. And that's the
Okay.
National Gallery of Art there with the blue chicken
Oh,
sitting up on the roof, which
it means a
everybody,
goose.
yes, exactly, the blue goose up on the roof, which everybody loves in DC. Anyway, um, so when the judge ruled on the case,
Mhm.
he he redacted, or he blacked out a huge portion of his opinion. And there's the U.S. Capitol, where the
Beautiful.
inauguration took place. So anyway, Heritage Foundation said, well, that's not really fair that you've blacked out so much information, because it's impossible for us to understand what it is that you've said, other than the fact that you're going to keep all of this under wraps.
Mhm.
So they went back to the judge, and they did a request. They filed a motion normally known as a Rule 59E motion. And Rule 59E basically is something that allows a lawyer or a party in a case to go back to the judge and say, hey, Your Honor, with all due respect, we think you screwed this up. It's kind of like going back to the teacher and saying, hey, I think you made a calculation error when you added up the score on my test.
Gotcha.
So that's what today's hearing was about. And the
Okay.
problem that the judge outlined, and which both sides acknowledge, is that if the judge made more of his original opinion public,
Mhm.
it would effectively spill the beans on the information that Heritage Foundation is looking for. In other words, it would basically blow the whole thing up and all the information would become public. So Heritage Foundation today was arguing, hey, look, let's go back, and maybe there are a couple of other workarounds, and I won't go into all the legal mumbo jumbo, but maybe there are some other ways that we can crack this nut. And they suggested them to the judge. And at the end of the day, the judge said, I'm willing to reconsider this, given the options that you guys have suggested to me, and I will come back with another decision in 3 or 4 weeks. So that's where everything stands right now. And depending on what the judge says in 3 or 4 weeks, it may be that he changes his mind, or it may be that he says, look, I still can't give you any information beyond what I've already given to you. And if you still don't like it, then you can go to the Court of Appeals. So that's where it stands at the moment. So yeah, that's what happened in the courtroom. But then there were also some very interesting conversations that happened in the lobby, where there were several members of the press there. There was a reporter from the UK Sun. There was a reporter there from Daily Mail. There was a woman there from Bild, which is a German media publication. I don't know if it's a magazine or a newspaper. So I know if people want to read other alternative, I'm not saying flee the conversation right now. Please stay with Jen. Jen by far is the best source of information. But if you want to look around, I'm sure there'll be some articles that have already popped up on the Sun website and on the Daily Mail website. And if you sprechen Sie Deutsch, then you can go look at the Bild website as well and see what they have to say.
And you said it was Judge Nichols, right, that was presiding over. What were your thoughts on him, just in general?
Well, it was interesting. I was very impressed with him the first time around. He seems like a very easygoing guy, very conversational. These are not hardcore back and forth in the way that it happened. If people watch the Johnny Depp trial, this is much more conversational. The lawyers basically get up. Heritage's lawyer stood up first, talked to the judge, answered some questions. Judge was a little bit hard on them, I thought, at first. And then the DHS lawyer came up and took the podium, and the judge kind of gave him a hard time as well. So I was interested. Maybe the judge was just in sort of a grouchy mood because maybe he's cold. Maybe he's cold and tired of the snow as well. So
maybe he was mad he wanted to play in that dirty snow.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, it was just very interesting, and there were two rounds of back and forth. And as I said, the judge basically just said, look, I'm going to take all this into consideration, a couple of different options that I have available to me based on your suggestions, and I'm going to come back in a couple of weeks and tell you what I think of all this. So again, when he said a couple of weeks, someone asked Samuel Dewey, the Heritage attorney in the lobby, what does that mean? And he said probably 3 or 4 weeks. So set your VCR, set your DVR. That'll be interesting. There could be a real double whammy if he does this by the end of February, because I'll hasten to add that Meghan's final appeal on getting a trademark for American Riviera Orchard is also coming up at the end of February or the early part of March. So there could be a double hit here, and it'll just be interesting to wait and see.
Yeah, and her "We Love Megan's" not much. What is that? Yeah, that's March as well. Yeah, they got a lot of doozies on the horizon.
Right. Yeah, good time. So
wow. So people are asking in the chat about Harry not having to appear. That's normal in a situation like that. I don't know if normal is the right word, but that's pretty standard, right? That he wouldn't be there today.
That's correct. And the reason for that is that this case, he is not a party to the case. He could have showed up if he felt like it. I mean, and gone into the courtroom just like I did and just like a whole bunch of other people did. But this case is the Heritage Foundation as the plaintiff. They brought the case, and the defendant is the United States government, specifically the Department of Homeland Security. Now, I wasn't aware of this until today, but apparently there's a parallel case, which is also in front of Judge Nichols, also brought by Heritage Foundation, except that is against the United States State Department. Since the State Department actually processes the request for the visa, Department of Homeland Security takes the information based on the decision from the State Department, which is the equivalent of I think the Foreign Secretary's office in the UK, and the Department of Homeland Security. Those are the people that you run into at the airport: United States Customs, United States Immigration Service, and so there are really two defendants in this case. Harry, though, is not one of them.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I gotcha. So I mean, he barely shows up when he's supposed to show up anyway, right? So.
Yeah, right. We saw that. Yeah, we saw that in the UK.
Right.
One thing that was interesting in this, and I just got a couple of notes here from some of the comments that were made in the little press gaggle in the lobby of the courthouse as well. A couple of things were very interesting. When this case originally came up, the judge actually used the term, which kind of surprised me. He said, there are three red flags. I'll do it the European way. There are three red flags, this is the American way of three red flags. So the first one was Harry told the truth on his visa application, and he was given special consideration by the Biden administration. Basically, the Biden administration told the State Department and told Homeland Security, and we're just going to overlook the fact that he's got this drug use in his past, and because normally that would render you inadmissible. And there are any number of people, celebrities, high-profile people, who in the past have tried to get into the United States and have had problems because of their drug use. I mean, we're talking about people like John Lennon. We're talking about Amy Winehouse. There's a whole list of them, which is pretty widely known. So option one was that he was honest, and yet he was given a pass anyway, and they said, no, that's okay, we'll just let him in. Number two option was that he lied on the application, which would contradict what he said in spare, and he was allowed in because he told a lie and they didn't take into consideration his drug use. Now, that's an interesting option, because if he lied, he would be subject to immediate deportation. That would not just be a political question, that would be a legal question, and they could pretty much tell him, pack your bags, get on a BA flight from Los Angeles, or a private jet, of course. We know there are a lot of private jets in Harry's orbit. So anyway,
private jet, yes.
Yes, exactly. Call up whatever the
Travelist.
Travelist, yes, thank you. Call up Travelist and find yourself a way out of the United States, because we don't like liars.
That's right.
And that would be very difficult for him to fight off, I think, from what I understand. The third option is that he's here on a diplomatic visa. That is considered, I think, the least likely of the options, because a diplomatic visa would not allow him to earn income while he was here and so forth. And then the fourth option, which came up today, which was everybody said that would just be bizarre, would be that he was coming and going into the United States, and that he just basically would say, hi, I'm Prince Harry. I don't need to deal with United States immigration and customs and so forth. And that they would say, yeah, we'll just come on through. Everybody agrees that, while that's possible, that would be really, really strange. So those are the basic, and the other thing that Samuel Dewey, the attorney, said was that nobody can figure this out. And the reason that fourth option came into play was that everybody just said, none of this makes any sense. Apparently he's talked to a lot of immigration attorneys, and nobody can really figure this out. So let me just go over a couple of the other
thank you so much.
The questions that came up.
And by the way, you're getting tons of love in the comments. Everybody's just saying you're amazing information, and they're really enjoying it. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. One of the questions which I asked was, one of the major contributions or disbursements of funds from Archwell last year for the last reporting period was that Archwell gave $250,000, $250,000 to a charity run by, drum roll, Ashley Biden. If you recognize the last name Biden, she is the daughter of former President Biden. Very interesting angle. The other question that I asked was, in 2023.
Do you see this comment? Sorry.
Oh, I do see that. Thank you. Thank you.
We'll
Well, in
discuss.
2020,
Go ahead. Ah,
I'll take that under advisement, as they
yeah,
say in court.
that's right.
The other question I asked was, in 2023, the Archwell Foundation / Prince Harry and 21 other donors started pooling $500 million, $500 million, with the intent of buying up newspapers in the United States, presumably, so they say, to combat Harry's favorite subject, misinformation.
Misinformation.
Yes, and disinformation. He and
Uh,
these other people want to really put the put fuel on the fire of combating this misinformation business. So interestingly, Niall Gardner, when I asked those two questions, his response to both of them was that he said there should definitely be some oversight of both of those transactions, or transactions, not the right word, but you get the idea,
yeah, yeah.
including congressional oversight, which I thought was very interesting. So if somebody on Capitol Hill wanted to open up a hearing into exactly why that $250,000 was given to a charity run by the president's daughter, he seemed to think that that would be a very, very interesting conversation for people to have.
I think so too.
The other thing that really I thought was compelling was that the the question was asked: could a third party come along and refile this Freedom of Information Act request? And would that make any difference now that we're in the Trump administration? And Donald Trump has said multiple times that he's not a fan of Meghan Markle. He's not a fan of Prince Harry. Feels like they treated the late Queen terribly, has a lot of problems with them both. The answer to that was it would not really make a difference because the Freedom of Information Act request would be handled by the same low-level people that had been handling the situation all along. However, he said that presumably the general counsel of the Department of Homeland Security could come along at any time, and this would be presumably under suggestion from Marco Rubio at the State Department, he's the new Secretary of State, or the new Director of Homeland Security, could tell the Attorney General, or not the Attorney General, the General Counsel of Homeland Security, reconsider this, open this up. So the takeaway from that is that anytime now Harry is at risk of Homeland Security saying, you know what, we do think in the Trump administration that this is a situation that merits public disclosure, and we're going to release the file because we think there's a compelling interest. And it's not necessarily about Prince Harry, but
Right.
it's about fairness and
Yeah.
transparency. And I specifically asked Niall Gardner this question. I said, is this about Prince Harry, or what are you guys trying to do here? Is this just heritage being heritage? And he said, this is not a vendetta against Prince Harry. This is the Heritage Foundation doing what we always do, which is to make sure that the rule of law is being upheld, make sure that there's transparency, and make sure that government has been functioning in the way that it has without favoritism and so forth. And people in the United States, I'm sure, are well aware of everything that's happened since the Trump administration got cranked up. And Donald Trump and Elon Musk and a bunch of other people have really been a tour de force as far as opening up the inner workings of the United States government, dealing with inappropriate activity. And at least that's a subjective measure, inappropriate. In some cases, I guess it's objective as well. But basically, what they're saying is, at any moment, this whole business could be opened up to the public, and there would be, no question about exactly what Harry's doing in the country, and whether he should be here or whether he should be kicked out because he lied on his application. So really interesting stuff, I thought. I was disappointed, or sort of, I knew I was going to be disappointed about the lack of a decision today. That was kind of a
Sure.
given going in. But some of these other little tidbits I thought were very compelling.
Yeah, you made the most of it and brought the information anyway. I think it's amazing. Thank you so much for doing that. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. You're
Yeah,
welcome.
so I mean, we're just speculating. Is Harry fighting behind the scenes, do you feel like, to keep this? I mean, obviously it's his best interest. He wants to keep it under wraps. I just wonder, there's probably just not much he can do at this point besides the weird dealings with passing money to certain former presidents' daughters.
Right, right. And that was I think a question that now Gardner actually appreciated being asked, because it certainly raises the specter. And I don't want to go too deep into
Sure.
politics, and
Yeah.
bygones are bygones, as far as the previous administration, but certainly raises the specter that there might have been something going on. $250,000 is a lot of money, and I think that was one of only two outflows of funds from Archwell in the
Mhm.
last reporting period, covering, I guess it would be 2023.
Yeah.
So, gosh, it's like so much else that went on in the Biden administration with the Bidens in particular, and Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son. It's like, ugh,
Mhm.
gee, that doesn't look real good. Of
Yeah.
all the as they say, of all the gin joints in all the cities in the world, lo and behold, two contributions, $250,000. Where did it end up? In the charity that's run by the president's daughter. Imagine that.
Mhm.
Imagine that. Who would
Weird
have thought?
coincidence, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So I would find it very interesting if somebody on Capitol Hill stood up and said, you know what, we do want to look into that. We want to know exactly what that $250,000 bought. We want to subpoena some people. We want to understand where that money went. And the same thing with this business of buying up all these newspapers. Again,
Mhm.
$500 million, $500 million. That is a lot of money. Now, some people have said, well, only Prince Harry would be dumb enough to pour $500 million, or be part of a group that poured $500 million into buying up newspapers, which are basically a dead,
Yeah. Medium.
industry.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yeah, I'll tell you something funny. Also, just based on that particular comment, I was talking to the reporter from the Sun, UK
Mhm.
Sun, and he said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Well, I'm just a YouTuber." And he immediately corrected me, and he said, "Oh no, don't ever say you're just a YouTuber. That's like, this is like the wave of the future. The Trump White House the other day, the press secretary came out and said, we're going to make seats available for alternative media, which includes people on YouTube and so forth." So I just thought that was funny
That's
that
awesome.
this guy from a newspaper said, "Oh no, don't ever discount yourself and the work that you're doing." And he actually told me that he had enjoyed my questions, and said, "You guys are doing important work." So
Yeah.
I took that as a compliment, and it's a compliment to you, Jen, and everybody else in the Megxit community, I think.
But John, you're identifying yourself as a YouTube. Any announcements to make yet or not yet?
Not yet, but I have heard all the comments. I really appreciate the support, and
Yeah.
especially, I mean, the comments that I saw about my little walk between the subway stop and the courthouse front door. That might be something that I tried right off the bat, because I think I'm so intrigued by so many of the travel videos that people
Mhm.
post about, little village like Stad and Samaritz, and some of the other villages in in Switzerland, where people have done walking tours, and there's some really cool walking tours, for instance, in the rain in
Mhm.
some cities in Japan. And there's so much really interesting architecture in Washington, D.C., especially the houses in Georgetown, some of which date back to the 16 and 1700s.
Mhm.
Um, it's just a really, really fascinating city. And so just the opportunity to walk along, especially in the springtime. If I do this, I'll kind of be waiting until the spring, because
Yeah.
Washington is so beautiful when the, you know, trees start to get leaves and the flowers come up and the cherry blossoms go up and everything.
Yeah.
There's a lot I think people would really enjoy about DC.
Do you think you'll try to go back to the next hearing if you're able to make that of this with this Harry thing coming up?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was really interesting today, and there
Uh-huh.
were only about 12 people in the courtroom, which was interesting. I think the parents of the Homeland Security guy were actually in the courtroom, which was really
Oh,
funny. The lawyer for Homeland Security was just a young
oh,
guy, and I'm pretty sure it was his parents that were there because I could sort of tell when he got up to speak, because
oh.
his mom was sort of like sitting on the edge of the bench in the back in the gallery, so it was pretty funny.
Aw, that's cool. Wow, that's
Yeah,
very cool. You'll have to let us know how that goes as well. That's great.
yeah.
Well, before I turn you loose, I have to ask your opinion. Do you have thoughts on the Megan video?
Oh boy, boy.
You've
You
had a
know what?
long day. Don't feel like you have to go on it. I'm just curious.
Yeah. I'm really torn because there's a part of me that says I feel bad for this woman. I feel bad for Harry for a whole host of reasons. Not just his mother died and he's the number two and he didn't get enough sausage and blah 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 blah, all that stuff that we've heard a
His
million times.
necklace got broken. Yes.
Yes, yes. Oh, heaven forbid. And of course, there's nobody at the palace who could fix a necklace.
Yeah.
There's no jewelers in London. There are no jewelers to fix broken
That's right.
necklaces.
Notoriously, yes.
Right. And so, as I said, I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, these are two human beings. They are parents. They have children. There's part of me that feels bad for them and wants them to succeed, just like you would want anybody to succeed. At the same time, they both insist over and over and over on throwing coal in the furnace of, you know what I mean? I mean, in this
Disaster
video,
furnace, yes.
yes, yes, and this video, it's like, do you really mean to tell me that Billie Eilish's people or Billie Eilish sent a box of T-shirts and a signed whatever it was and a lunchbox? It looked like she sent
Mhm.
that stuff all the way to Montecito, 90 miles from Los Angeles. This is the 15-year-old and the mother presumably live in Los Angeles, not in Montecito. So, but lo and behold, why did she send it up to Montecito? Well, do you think it was maybe so Megan could make an Instagram reel about it?
Mhm.
That might be the case. So it's just this nonsense. And again, after all the disdain that was heaped on her and
Mhm.
Harry for actually being down on the fire ground in the first place, you would think she would want all of that to go away. But no, now she's basically doubled down on her activities down there in Pasadena, where they were
Yeah,
traipsing through the ashes of people's homes.
yeah, I
It's just
agree.
remarkable. So I mean, I guess my overall opinion is it's hard not to dislike Meghan and
Mhm.
Harry because they keep pulling stunts like this. It's just remarkable. And this um, this woman who had worked for them and has now started Three Gates, I believe it's called, the PR firm. Supposedly she's on the job right now, or maybe she's not.
Mhm.
Why
I
in the
know.
world?
Why
Why
in
in the
the
world?
world? Is Megan just not listening to her? I don't know.
Right. Here's the other thing too. With all the media connections and so forth, if Megan had just sent that box of shirts and signed material, if she had just arranged for that to go straight to the 15-year-old girl and her mother, I
Mhm.
guarantee you she could have worked something out so that people would have found out accidentally somehow that this
Mhm.
transaction had taken place. And oh, you know what? The coolest thing happened. I got this signed T-shirt or signed whatever from Billie Eilish. You know how that happened? This very nice woman, Meghan Markle, up in Montecito, she made the whole thing come together. But no, no, she had to have an opportunity to make an Instagram reel and blow her own horn, and to say nothing of the cringe factor of the actual video. I noticed as well that it had seemed to have several edit points in it. So it
Mhm.
clearly was a curated video. It was not just oh, guess what? I'm walking around in my jeans and I'm just going to run my mouth off for 30 seconds and talk about this cool box of stuff that arrived. And um, obviously, it had been unpacked by some staff member or maybe by Megan herself. We don't know.
Mhm.
And it was all arranged and lined up on a table. And then Meghan came out. She's jumping up and down like a 14-year-old about, oh,
Exactly.
goody, goody, goody. Look, I got this cool stuff. I've been waiting. I can't believe. And and when she told the story about my husband, by the way, it's not Harry.
I
They're married. Everybody knows he's
Mhm.
her husband. Why can't she call him by the name Harry? Why does she have to say my husband? It's like saying my dog or my housekeeper or it's very possessive in a kind of a
The world rev
undesirable way.
That's right, the world revolves around Meghan, so it's her husband. It's like
Yes.
if I introduced you not as John Witherspoon, attorney, DC area, I'm just like, "This is my friend. Listen to my
Yeah.
friend." It
Right.
gives you
Right.
no identity. You're just my friend. That's
Yeah. So it's really interesting from that perspective, and the way that she recounted the story as well. When she says, we were down there, we were talking to people, which is interesting in and of itself because people weren't
Mhm.
supposed to be there. She had been let in under special conditions along with Harry. How in the world did the mother and the daughter find their way in? It's like,
Exactly.
okay, I thought nobody was allowed in here when they were around. Anyway, again, I
You
can't
see this
speculate. It's
comment?
just
She's saying, "I should introduce you as this is my John. Hey, everybody, this is
yes.
my John."
Yes, yes, thank you. So anyway, the way that she described it was I was talking to this woman who had lost her house, and then
Right.
I looked over and I said, "Oh my gosh, there's a 15-year-old." And I went over to her and I said, "What's your name?" And
Yeah.
again, it's one of those situations where there's so much detail involved in the storytelling that it kind of makes you wonder, is this a true story or is this something that is being you know curated and crafted to have maximum splash value? And it's the kind of thing that if I was in court and a witness was retelling a story in the way that Megan told that story, I would call that out to a jury. And I think the jury, if they were paying attention, their spidey sense, their antenna would go up and they would say, something about this sounds a little bit too rehearsed and a little bit too performative,
Mhm.
and it just doesn't ring exactly true. There's so many other ways to tell this tale
Mhm.
of running into this woman and the daughter, and it just, even if you like Meghan, and
Mhm.
we know the Sussex squad, those people are out there.
Yeah.
Oh, how many of them liked
12 of
her
them.
what is it, 1.5 million followers she has on Instagram?
Uh-huh.
None of whom, by the way, none of whom apparently liked the trailer for her video. Interesting juxtaposition. She has 1.5 million followers on Instagram, but only 10 or 15,000 people managed to get over to the Netflix
Mhm.
trailer on YouTube and give it a like. Isn't that interesting? Isn't
You're
that interesting?
exactly right.
So
Exactly.
anyway, I'm going on
No,
farther
you're
than
spot on, and
yeah.
I did tell everybody right before you jumped on, I had said that you and I had kinda talked a little bit offline, and you brought up such a good point that it's like it was there, but I didn't think about it, which is we should expect a delivery video any day now. People Magazine will probably
Yes.
get the scoop. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. There'll be a presentation video. I mean,
Yes.
of lo and behold, here's they used to run those ads in the United States where there was a company called Publishers Clearinghouse, and if you won the
You
Publishers
might already be a
Clearinghouse,
winner. Yes.
right, right, and they would show up in a van with a camera crew, and they would ring somebody's doorbell, and they would say, "Congratulations, you've won $1 million in the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes," which is basically a way to sell magazines. And if you bought a magazine, they would put your name in this drawing for $1 million or whatever it was. And like I said, then they would show up with a van and balloons and a camera crew and everything else. And congratulations, and the people would be, "I'm shocked. I can't believe you brought this giant check." Anyway, I'm
Mhm.
waiting for a video like that of Megan or somebody It would have
Yeah.
to be Meghan showing up at wherever this young woman lives with her mother, probably in
Mhm.
a hotel or at a relative's house or something. And lo and behold, here's Meghan presenting, oh, guess what? I've done this great thing for you. And here are these T-shirts and
Mhm.
lunchbox. And so that if I had to guess, we'll be seeing that. That'll be the next additional video on Megan's Instagram page. So
Yes, because it's a way
set
to
your
promote
set your
herself.
DVR.
That's right. You heard it here first, John
Right,
Witherspoon calling it. That's
right,
right.
right.
I feel
Yep,
confident in your prediction for sure. Yes.
yep.
Yeah.
So like I said, I mean, I don't wish either of them ill will organically, but I do have a very negative reaction, as obviously a lot of people do,
Yeah.
to all of they are their own worst enemies. Um, Anybody with any common sense could come along and say to Meghan and Harry, you got to stop.
Mhm.
You've got to stop.
Yeah.
You and I don't think I don't think Meghan can ever redeem herself. I think
No.
because she has nothing else to offer. She really
Mhm.
doesn't, except this rumored divorce book that she wants to
Mhm.
allegedly publish. But I think Harry could potentially redeem himself through a very, very substantial apology to his dad, to the King,
Mhm.
King Charles III, and to his brother, and to Princess Catherine, and to
Mhm.
other people that he has grievously offended by
Mhm.
by saying and doing and writing what he has done. And I think if Prince William, and I'm not saying he would ever do this, but if he did and said, I accept my brother's apology, he's my brother, my
Mhm.
mother would want me, Princess Diana would want me to do the right thing and mend the fence here. I suspect he could redeem himself, but and it would a lot of the British people, American people would probably a lot of people would still have a very negative impression of him, but it
Mhm.
could be done. I think, after a long period of reflection and repentance and everything else. I don't think Meghan has any hope of ever being redeemed because
No, I don't.
she has no intrinsic value. If she had some value to offer, something to offer the world beyond being a briefcase girl and being a bit player on Suits,
Mhm.
she would have done it by now. She just
Yeah.
seems to stall and spin her wheels. And I think the reason for that is because everybody looks at what she's selling and says, we're not buying it.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's just and it's to your point, just continued stunts like this. You just can't trust a thing she says ever. Look at the history. It's just yeah.
That's right. That's right.
So,
Yeah,
no, I agree.
it's tragic because there was so much potential. Everybody loved her at the wedding, right after the wedding. She and Harry were going to be the new British royalty. They were going to take the British royal family into um, you know, the open arms of a new generation and so forth. And um, they have just in the US we would say fumbled the ball. Apparently in UK they say fumbled the bag.
Oh, I don't
Is that
know.
the phrase? I don't know, but they fumbled something
Uh-huh.
badly and they continue to fumble it without any wins. I mean, it's just loss, 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 loss
Mhm.
over and over and over again. And um, and Harry, I had an interesting conversation with somebody recently. I said, if Harry had a job as a
Mhm.
regular, if he was not a member of the British royal family, um, government has a strange way of labeling um, positions. I saw a listing the other day here locally for a job, and it was a recreation specialist, which means someone who supervises playgrounds, basically,
Oh.
where children go, or they organize, um, basketball or soccer games or whatever it is. And I thought, I it just hit me. It's like, Prince Harry would probably be an awesome recreation specialist. He loves little kids. Little kids seem to love him. It's comfortable for him. He doesn't have this kind of pompous, aristocratic air about him. I think, Jen, you and I were talking recently about one of the things that I think makes Prince Harry unlikable is that he's
His
kind of the
face. I'm just kidding.
yeah, well,
Just kidding.
it's in the eye of the beholder,
I'm
obviously,
just
but
kidding.
it's
I had to do it. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, Prince Harry is kind of like getting into a Mercedes and turning the key and finding out that it's got a lawnmower engine under the hood.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, okay, here's this. What I don't know, what was it? Who was it that said he was a hottie? Okay, fine. If you're into Prince Harry, if you think he's a hottie, somebody said that recently. Maybe that
Yeah.
was on the Family Feud thing.
I don't
But
know.
um, and he comes across, he's got that British, the quintessentially British aristocratic accent,
Mhm.
and then he opens his mouth, and it's like, I'm sorry, I didn't get anything out of that. It's again the the word salad.
Yeah.
Um, and what's interesting too, for all of, and again, you and I, Jen, you were talking about this the other day.
Mhm.
When Harry's all about, oh, we've got to protect children, and we've got to get disinformation out of the media and so forth. When was the last time you ever heard Harry quote a statistic? When was the last time you ever heard him cite appropriately conducted research into the harm of social media on young children?
Yeah.
It,
Right.
it may be, it may well be out there, but he does not understand that that type of thing is very persuasive. And if he just stands up there, or like he did in one of the British court cases, and say, well, I don't have solid information, I'm here. I'm just here for you to take my word for this. And so that's the way he approaches this whole social media crusade that he and Meghan are on, apparently. And that's the way he approaches this whole disinformation thing. Never any numbers, never any statistics, never citations to any qualified, solid research. It's
Mhm.
just
It's just
my
his
heart.
word, and we're supposed to just trust it. Yeah, don't
Yes,
question
my
it.
my
And he
observation, my intuition, my feelings, my heart.
which the irony, he's talking about disinformation or
Yes,
misinformation and not having the facts to back it up. He's quite literally spreading misinformation by doing this, so.
exactly,
The
exactly.
irony's
So
lost
anyway,
on him, though, which is kind of hilarious.
yes, yes.
Mhm.
But back to the original conversation. I mean, I think for me, the big takeaway out of all this is that if Donald Trump or somebody in Department of Homeland Security or Secretary Rubio at the State Department or one of their, senior lieutenants for the folks in the UK, if one of those people said, you know what, we're tired of Prince Harry and we're tired of hearing all of this nonsense, we're just going to release this information and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
Entirely within the realm of possibility, that we could open the newspaper tomorrow morning and read that, you know what, the new Department of Homeland Security has had a change of heart, and they're going to release this in the public interest,
Mhm.
and anything is possible. It really is. And a lot of people, the only other point I'd make is that a lot of people have said Donald Trump has bigger fish to fry than dealing with this.
Yeah, sure.
And he's, going through government efficiency, United States Agency for International Development, USAID. He's consumed with that. He's looking at the Department of Education. But Donald Trump being Donald Trump, he's the reason that, the Mexican government, the Canadian government, all of a sudden said, we don't want tariffs from Donald Trump. We're going to help with the immigration problem into the United States, the fentanyl problem and so forth.
Mhm.
And he's totally an unpredictable commodity. And when people say, oh, he's got bigger fish to fry, he's dealing with all these other issues and these big stacks of, you know, executive orders and proclamations that he's dealing with,
Mhm.
I would not put it past Donald Trump. I
Yeah.
really would not. He could wake up in the middle of the night and say, you know what? Let me get a glass of water. And by the way, while I'm up, I'm going to send an email over to whoever and put an end to this Prince Harry nonsense right now.
Yeah.
It could
Yeah.
happen. It really could. That's the
Yeah.
kind of personality Donald Trump is. It's very, very interesting. And if I were Prince Harry, boy, number one, I'd keep my mouth shut. Number two, I would seriously have a plan B available to go back to the UK or to Portugal or wherever else he wants to go.
Mhm.
It really is at that point, I think. I really think
Yeah.
that's the case. And
So,
also, I'll
uh,
just mention as well, I forgot, somebody asked me, there's a UK official named Suella Braverman, I believe is her name.
okay.
And that person has made some comments in support of Heritage Foundation.
Okay.
And now Gardner told me today that he thinks that there are other people just waiting in the wings to jump on that bandwagon. These are
Um,
people in the UK, high profile people in government or newly out of government. So that might be something that Harry needs to take into his calculus as well and be a
that's
little bit
interesting.
concerned about.
Huh, that's interesting. Somebody had made a point that is it's hard to say, but I tend to fall in the camp of this, which is they believe, and I don't get political here, so people get weird when I say Trump, but Trump tends to seem to respect the royal family, so they think he'd follow whatever their wishes are, and if they wish that Harry just hang out, then maybe could be.
That is possible. That is
Mhm.
entirely possible.
He seemed to have a
But
big respect for Her Majesty the late Queen, so.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Although, apparently he had a pretty cordial conversation with Prince William in Paris.
True. That is true.
So, if Prince William put a bug in his ear,
Yeah.
which is entirely possible, I mean, it was a one-on-one conversation, entirely possible that Prince William could have said, hey, I think you ought to do this. I think you ought to do that. I think you ought to ignore my brother. I think you ought to drop the hammer on my brother. We
Mhm.
just don't know.
I mean, I would think they'd say ignore him because they don't want him back in the UK.
Yeah, right,
But,
right.
I did get this question for you. People are asking, can he be stopped, coming back from Invictus? I mean,
That's an interesting question. I think the answer to that is yes, but the way that that would unfold would be um, a revocation of his visa, because presumably if his visa is the same visa that he's had all along, if
Mhm.
it's intact, meaning I don't know exactly the right word, if it's still in effect, then he would just come to United States immigration at the airport in the same way that everybody else does,
Mhm.
and he would, um, be let in. The customs, the immigration officer would look at it and he would say, okay, British passport, but United States visa. I see all these other stamps in here. He's been admitted back to the United States several times, so he's good to go again. By the way, one of the questions that has come up several times is whether um, he would be required to go through the same immigration procedure if he came into the United States on a private jet as opposed to on a commercial flight. And the answer to that is definitely yes.
Oh, okay.
When you come into the United States, regardless of how you come in, you still need to go through United States Immigration and Customs. It's the same thing as if you are in the Bahamas, you get on a sailboat and you sail to Miami or some American port. You have to make yourself known to United States Customs and Immigration, and if you don't, they take an extremely dim view of that. They also tend to assume that you've got something to hide, like in your
Mhm.
cargo that you shouldn't have, and the United States knows every boat that transits from a foreign country to an American marina, an American port. um, just because you're on a small boat, just because you're on a private jet, you still have to go through the same procedures as everybody else would that queued up on an international flight off of a 777 or 747, whatever it is, except probably the line at the private jet terminal for customs and immigration is probably going to be a lot shorter. I
Mhm.
guarantee you that that is not a way to slip into the United States just by virtue of the fact that you're on a private plane.
Yeah, I gotcha. That makes sense. I gotcha. And then somebody asked if you would be willing, if you ended up doing something with the walking tours, they want to know if you'd show off the British embassy when you're
Yes,
walking around. That'd be cool.
yes,
I'd love to see
absolutely.
that.
The British Embassy is a beautiful building. There are
Mhm.
actually two parts of it. There's the old part and the new part. The
Mhm.
old part is very beautiful. The new part is kind of 1950s, 1960s. I don't want to say it looks like a council flat, but it's not as compelling a building as the old part. It's right. Interestingly, it's in a very prestigious location. It's right next to the United States Naval Observatory, which is where the vice president has his, or recently her,
Mhm.
residence. I'll say one thing about the British Embassy, which is very cool, and I've mentioned this before. Some people might recall, but there's a famous statue of Winston Churchill on the grounds of the British Embassy, and he's standing with one leg forward and one leg back. And the plaque on the statue, and this is very well known, the forward leg is on American soil because that's outside the embassy ground, and the back leg, his back foot, is on British soil because it's part of the embassy compound.
That's cool.
And that's meant to symbolize the cooperation and the close nature of the United States and the UK. I mean, I think arguably, I hope it's still the case that
Yeah.
the UK is the closest ally of the United States. Um, notwithstanding Donald Trump and notwithstanding the current leadership in the UK, everybody always says, "Oh, it's the US and Canada." Yeah, I guess you could make that argument too, but um, the US and the UK obviously have a very special relationship, and I think that's reflected in the location of the embassy, the sort of grandeur of the embassy. All the embassies in Washington are on Massachusetts Avenue, which is a major, it's 2 lanes, major street. It's 2 lanes in each direction, and there's a section of that that's known as Embassy Row, and you just
Mhm.
go right down over and over and over. The British Embassy, the UK Embassy, the South African Embassy is right across the street. The former
That's
Iranian Embassy, which is a beautiful building, is right there. Um, I mean, I'd be happy to take people through there and just point everything out. It's a
I
really,
can tell
really
you the
interesting
chat's
place.
going nuts and saying, "That sounds so interesting." They're all saying the same thing, that this is so interesting to them, and they also have plans for you to take off big and then come to the UK and film some of their stuff. So,
Oh, that'd be fun. That'd be
yeah,
fun. Yeah, and I know, Jen, you always go over there
I
and come up with good
do.
content, and other Megxit
I
people
do.
have been over there as
Mhm.
well. So yeah, that would be very interesting. Although
Yeah.
my real target, my immediate European target, is to go back to Switzerland because there's
Oh,
some
no.
beautiful little villages, and obviously in the spring the flowers are fantastic, and in the winter the snow is fantastic. So um,
Mhm.
maybe I could make a stop in the UK. I wouldn't mind taking the Channel Tunnel either. That would be really fun,
Yeah.
I think, to go underneath and recreate I forget which Mission Impossible movie it was, where
Yeah,
maybe we can get a helicopter to be dragged behind the train through the tunnel, and
sure.
and I can hang outside the train like Tom Cruise and do whatever he did. So yeah, that would be
I
fun.
look forward to your channel then, Jo, you need to get on this. You have big plans.
Right, right.
Awesome.
Always something to do.
That's right. Well, hey, thank you so much for being here and for answering all of our questions. I'm seeing if there's any last minute questions, but everybody's just so thrilled that you're here and it sounds they're oh yeah, everybody's saying this is amazing and LOL John, they're laughing about what you just said. And yeah, that's awesome. But well, you have to let us know if and when you decide to do this, and we'll join instantly and watch all your adventures. So that's something exciting to look forward to.
Well, that would be really great, and I would
Cool.
certainly appreciate all the support. And I'll look forward to it. Because there are some, as I said, Washington is absolutely beautiful in the springtime. I mean, I'm a native of Washington D.C., and I have a little bit of a bias probably, but it really is. People are stunned at the number of trees that are in
Wow.
Washington. It's an incredibly green and leafy city. Um, and it was designed actually by a French guy. His name was Pierre L'Enfant, who laid it
Mm.
out. And it's not like London, where everything is kind of, here and there and everywhere over the course of decades and centuries. But it's a planned city, so everything is laid out on a grid. It's very interesting to talk about all that kind of thing. And as I said, the architecture is beautiful. The history is fantastic. Um, some wonderful. Somebody said to me the other day they would love to see a tour of some of the high-profile hotels in Washington, which is really um, an intriguing concept because, again, some of the hotels are very famous. When I have people come to Washington,
Mhm.
one of the things uh, people always want to know is where's the hotel where President Reagan got shot, and
Oh,
it's the Washington Hilton.
oh,
There are two big Hilton hotels. There's the Capitol Hilton, which is right by the White House, and then there's the Washington Hilton, which is where John Hinckley shot President Reagan. And it's sarcastically known as the Hinckley Hilton, which is a little bit of black humor because it's obviously not a pleasant experience, but for President Reagan and the other people in particular. But it's just very interesting. You can stand right on the spot where John Hinckley fired the gun, and also a lot of movies have been done in Washington. I think a lot of people are familiar with the steps in Georgetown that were used in The Exorcist, where there was a
oh.
Catholic nun who fell down the steps or was pushed down the steps. That's always a
Oh.
fun place to look at. And there are other
Uh-huh.
places where um, Hunt for Red October, there's a famous doorway where they went into a building, and Pelican Brief, there's a famous bank. So maybe that would be something to look into too.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I didn't think about that aspect of it, the different movie spots and stuff. That's a really good idea. I'm sure shows have
Yeah.
been filmed around there. There's
And
lots. Good.
a guy tried to climb the fence at the White House this morning, and the reaction of the Secret
John, why
Service,
did you do that? I don't understand.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The reaction of the Secret Service, if
Oh,
anybody wants to look that up, it's on the New York Post. Put it on their website, on their YouTube channel. Check that
mhm.
out. It's actually really funny.
Okay.
I mean, the dogs. There's a guy up on. You have to watch it on a big screen. There's a guy up on the roof of the White House, which there always is, who you can tell is all of a sudden getting very animated, and and they have weapons up there. I mean, they have sharpshooters up there all the time. But this guy on the White House roof gets very animated, and then you start hearing sirens in the background, and you start seeing dogs running across the White House lawn, and then police cars show up, and they start telling everybody, "Hey, you're going to need to kind of move yourselves along because we're going to close this area off and deal with this goofball." The thing that was really intriguing about it is that he actually got himself to the top of the fence, which is
Mhm.
an incredible feat. He does it entirely with arm strength.
Wow.
And then he got to the top of the fence and he got stuck because there's some pointy places on the top of the
Mhm.
fence. And I think he got his belt or some piece of clothing. He kind of hung himself up on the top of the fence. And then by that time, the dogs were everywhere and they were saying, "You better
Yeah.
get down or you're going to get bitten." And anyway, so like I said, on the New York Post website, look at not their website, on the YouTube channel for New York Post. You'll
We
find it.
definitely will. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely follow you on Instagram. How else can we support you? Of course, we'll listen for word on a channel, but is there any other way we can support you in any way or just
Now
Instagram's a
that's
good idea?
Yeah, that's really thoughtful of you. That's
Mhm.
kind of it for the time being.
Okay.
I
Okay.
really appreciate the offer,
Yeah.
and the support and comments that people have made are always helpful. It's good to know. I get negative comments, and I try to take people's criticisms into account. So, but mostly it's been very, very positive, and I
I
appreciate
was
that a
gonna
lot.
say you can't this whole chat has gone crazy over you, so I think you have a fan
Good.
base. You're
That's
good.
that's very
You're
kind.
good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you've been threatening to make me honk, so I'll beat you to it. Honk honk.
Ah, there you go. I was gonna ask you to honk, and I was gonna admit something. I've never been to DC, so maybe I need to find a reason to come film up there sometime. Sounds like
Absolutely.
fun. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's not hard to get here from Florida. flights all the time, and you
There
can.
you go.
What you should do is get yourself on the auto train. That would be a cool thing to do. You can get the auto train in a place called Sanford, Florida, which is very near Disney World in Orlando,
Uh-huh.
and it drops you off in Lorton, Virginia, which is just
There you go.
outside of DC. And you put your car on the train, bring your car with you, and then you can just get a seat or you can get a bedroom, and that's a
Uh-huh.
great way to come to DC. So think about that.
I'll just sit in my car.
Yeah, they don't let you do that. They don't let you
I'm
do
just
that.
kidding.
I'm sure people
I'm
have tried it.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No,
That's right.
I don't think that would be a lot of fun
That's
to
right.
sit
And I'd like
in
to
an enclosed
say
railroad car. Yeah.
I'd like to say it's so I can go see my friend John, but truly it's because you talked about that chicken parmesan. And ever since then, I'm like, well, I got to go to DC
Yes.
now.
Yes. And I will put I've somewhere I've got a picture of the caricature of Johnny Depp and Nicolas
There you
Cage
go.
on the wall next to each other in the restaurant. And I'll get a picture of the room where Johnny Depp and his legal team ate their dinner every night, and apparently he was a big chicken parmesan fan. So
That's awesome. Yeah. Oh, everybody's saying honk honk, John. And thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. And I look forward to talking to you very soon. I'm going to get you back on the regular show soon just so we can talk more of this Harry and Meghan stuff because I enjoy your take on all of it. So thank you for everything.
you're welcome. Have a good evening.
You too. Take care. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
Everybody, make sure you follow John on Instagram. He's wonderful. John, thank you for all your time. That was so nice. He answered all of our questions. If you guys missed it, he was there in court today for the hearing for Harry. So, yeah, he gave some good inside scoop, and it sounds like he'll be back in a few weeks, hopefully. So, that's awesome. Thank you, John, for your time and for being so kind to us all. We appreciate that and for answering our questions. A huge thank you to John for taking your time and answering all of our questions and being here and explaining all this in such a lovely, thoughtful way. It means so much. We so sincerely appreciate that. Thank you all for being so kind and lovely. I appreciate that. And I want to thank my Patreon members. I'm going to go ahead and flash your names here, the lovely geese and ganders that are members, executive producers of the show. They are members on the Look at Me tier. And I really appreciate your support. It means so much to me. If you're interested in Patreon, you check it out, patreon.com/Real Housewives Recaps. Yes, it's my old name, but it's all kinds of content. Keep posting 3 times a week and so much bonus stuff over there. So definitely check that out if you're least bit interested. Again, a huge thank you to John Witherspoon for taking the time to answer all of our questions and being so thoughtful and just great about the whole thing. Thank you for going and reporting back. Thank you for making a video for us. That means so much. And yeah, I truly can't wait to have him back on soon. And I can't wait to bring you guys more stuff like this. I truly hope you have the best day, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye bye.